Courtney Neff, welcome to the Daily People podcast. I'm excited. I'm excited to have you on. We've talked about it too much for it not to happen.
It's been a long time coming. We've been talking about it since, before Daily People wasn't even a thing.
That's right. I remember you telling me that you were going to be the show's biggest fan.
Exactly. And I think I've kept my promise.
Have you? Have you listened to all the episodes?
Of course.
Yeah. Good answer. Good answer. So yeah, I've got the show's biggest fan on today. She's absolutely incredible. She's a law student from Missouri, so we won't hold that against her. And she actually has a real heart for helping others, which is why I wanted to have her on. So I was actually scrolling through her Instagram a while back, and I saw this. I saw this picture that I want to get, Courtney. I want your answer to. The picture said, "If you are more fortunate than others, build a bigger table."
Totally.
So, how do you embody this philosophy?
I think that it's really important to, really keep that and embody it in every single turn that you can. I think that it really shows the type of person you are. If you really, it can really mean anything from, giving a few dollars to somebody on the side of the street or, really, reaching out your hand and helping others. There's so many different kinds of philanthropy in this world, and, whichever you're drawn to or whatever your passion is, it's definitely something that you can choose. But personally, I just try to lead it every day. And that can be, I also think that knowledge is so helpful, or, even a conversation with people. Conversations can mean more to people than you'll ever know or than they'll ever tell you. So I think that, having an open heart, you don't always have to, hand out money or clothes or anything. You can truly just have a conversation, and that would mean just the same.
Yeah. I have a brother-in-law that I was riding with one day in St. Louis, and I think you and him would have a similar heart position in helping others, because we're in the middle of St. Louis and he's got bags packed in the back of his car with bananas, waters, oranges. And as we would see people, he would just hand these out. And I don't know that he even remembers me thinking, his name's Mike, by the way. And I don't even know if Mike remembers me seeing this, but it really made a lasting impression on me. And I love the position of people who want to help people. Mm-hmm. And what happens a lot of times is, we learn through the behaviors of others. So who gave you this position? Who put that on your heart to want to help people?
It's so interesting. So I have actually talked to a lot of my friends here and through, my past and everything. And I think that I really come from a position of privilege when it comes to that, because I got to see that in my parents and my grandparents. Philanthropy has always been something that has really been near and dear to all of our hearts. And a lot of people don't get to see that. They don't get to see empathy in their homes growing up. And they don't have to learn it, or I didn't have to learn it as an adult. It's just always been embedded inside of me. My parents are the most giving people ever, sometimes to a fault. And I think that it's really interesting, because if every single person had the same mindset like that, could you imagine how different the world would be? It's perplexing, because, I find it not hard to have that mindset. It's really just embedded to who I am. And so when, I see people that are judgmental or, crucify these people that aren't as privileged as us, it's a completely foreign subject to me. And I think that really comes from a place of privilege, because I didn't have parents that, talked down on people that were less fortunate. But, a lot of people do. And so I think that people, like us that have these mindsets and we're young, really talking about it and bringing it up can really, really change a lot of lives, and to really check people. I think that 2020 really was the year of reckoning. I know a lot of friends that, kind of had to check themselves. And, I think that is probably one of the most beneficial things that people can do, is to really reflect and say, you know what, like, not only am I on this earth to make money and die, but I'm on this earth to really help people and love people. And I think that's one of the best things and mindsets that you can have, really.
Adding value is, I actually talked about this yesterday on another recording, but adding value to people is one of those things that we really sleep on a lot when it comes to helping others. We often think a lot of times in our culture is adding value in ways that can help somebody make money or helping ourselves make money, but
Okay.
it's just such an interesting viewpoint. And one of the things that you said was you were talking about challenging people
Mhm.
to be somebody who helps people. And I'm in a weird place on that, not because I don't want to, but because I have a hard time doing it. You know, it's really easy to step on somebody's toes, and you may have an audio thing going on. I'm not sure. Um,
I don't think so. Can
okay,
you hear me?
maybe. Yeah, I got you.
Okay.
So yeah. Anyways, every now and then I have a hard time challenging some people on like them wanting to or not wanting to help somebody. And I'll give you an example. If a homeless person was to walk up and just ask for, like a dollar or two,
Mhm.
instead of extending their hand with a dollar bill, they tell them to get a job.
Yeah.
Would you be able to challenge somebody in that situation?
And like, I think that, this might be to my fault or whatever. And, that might be why some people don't want to be my friend or they don't like me or whatever. But you know what? I can sleep at night saying that, I would challenge that person. Um,
Yeah.
I think it makes me a better person knowing that I surround myself with people that would, not be rude in those circumstances. But I also think that it really is important to not expect that from people. I think that it's really,
You're saying not expect that from somebody who is homeless or
expect that from somebody that would, not want to give money to somebody. I think that's totally a personal choice. But I do encourage those people to find another way to help, whether it be, buying them food or a jacket. Cause, a lot of people say, oh, well, they'll just use it to buy drugs. That's
yeah.
this cliche saying, but there's so many ways to help that, I think that that's a bad excuse.
Okay. So while we're on this topic of helping,
Mhm.
um, I noticed that you were a founding member of Love Your Melon.
Yeah.
Explain what this was.
Okay. So I'm actually wearing the beanie right now. Um,
Oh, okay.
Love Your Melon is a child cancer philanthropy. The proceeds go to, I don't know if you've seen the pictures, or, a lot of the social media is pretty active still of, people wearing superhero capes and going to see children with cancer
Hmm.
in the hospitals. And that's something that we did is really, promote this company that, had the passion to help young children. And so that's something that we did at Pittsburgh State University, where I went to undergrad. Actually during recruitment, she wasn't even a sister yet. And I was talking to her, and she brought up that, that was near and dear to her heart and that we didn't have a chapter at our university yet. And I was like, you know what, like if that's on your heart, I'll help you do it. And then when she became an official sister, we said, let's take this and run with it. And that's exactly what we did. And we started the chapter at Pittsburgh State University. And it was really, really one of the most rewarding things ever because, for instance, one time we got to go to the home of a child with cancer in Joplin. And, he had one of those Facebook pages supporting his journey, and stuff like that. And there's a total difference of, posting support on those pages and, seeing it really implemented into real life. He got to see our faces. He got to see, these people really, truly care about me. And I think that really helps the healing process. And yeah, it's an amazing philanthropy, but I really, really enjoyed it.
Okay. So Love Your Melon, we're talking about, is this just for children?
It was mainly focused around children. For example, we got a beanie for, a professor that we knew that had cancer. We had Love Your Melon, the actual head chapter, provide a beanie for her, and that's something that they use to reach out to the older people. But it is centered around children, because I think that's the most devastating news not only a child could get, because they probably really don't even understand. But even though I don't have children, it's really it tugs on your heartstrings, because you, especially when you're able to put yourself in their shoes, it would be the single most life-changing thing that could ever happen to you, I believe. So
I would agree with that.
Just to be able to, say, oh, well, I can provide a smile today. That's the least I can do. And that's really what sets that organization apart. It just truly brings joy in places that are so dark.
So my understanding from what I'm hearing is that you guys were like basically a representative is Love Your Melon they're like their own organization. And
yes. And
okay.
this kind of a chapter, I believe that the back history was that a couple college students started at a university. It became a huge organization in business.
Okay.
And it has different branches at different universities. And we were blessed enough to be able to have one.
Okay.
Help people in our area.
And so you mentioned earlier you're wearing the beanie. I think I'm figuring out that Love Your Melon is like a some sort of head deal, or is it?
It's like it's beanies, it's hats, it's stuff like the melon,
Yeah.
Yeah, and it has other stuff, but all of that. A lot of the proceeds go to providing financial funds for children with cancer. So that, whatever we can do to help. And if it's the least I can do is buy a beanie, I'm going to buy a beanie,
So after this, we need to make sure whenever we're promoting on social media that we just link them in there. Maybe we can get a few donations thrown their way. But yeah, that's an awesome thing to be a part of. So the fundraisers and stuff that you guys would do, how would you put those events on? I think I noticed that you were in Greek life.
Yes.
When you were. So obviously you had connections. What did it look like, putting this foundation into place?
So I think that something really beneficial to point out is that we did have a huge group of people supporting us from the beginning. And that's something that a lot of groups don't have. And so, to have that support of, all my sorority sisters and, our president was amazing. And he really, touched every base and reached out to everybody. And, I believe that Pittsburgh State University is truly the best, truly the most happiest place on earth, better than Disneyland, truly. And so they backed us fully with that too. And that's something that, a lot of people don't have is, the full faith of not only your sorority, but your university. And that's something that definitely sets Pitt State apart.
Yeah. So you're from Missouri.
Yes.
And small town, big town?
Small town.
Small town. What's the population?
Oh God. I think last census, it was like 11,000.
Oh, okay. Yeah. That's relatively small.
Small.
Yeah. Okay. So why do you leave a small town? Because like most people from small towns, I feel like they would rather go to their local community college or whatever.
Yeah.
But you leave and you go to Pittsburgh State University. Why?
Mm-hmm. Well, okay. So me now and me in high school are two separate beings.
Explain the difference.
Oh my goodness. How long do you have?
Well, the floor is yours. So, yeah.
So I really didn't I had goals and stuff, but they really didn't come to fruition in my head. I didn't have a plan. I only applied to Pittsburgh State and got accepted. And I was like, yeah, so I'm going to go there. And
I did that with school too.
Yeah, totally. Mm-hmm. And so it's only about an hour away from Neosho. So I didn't completely turn my back on them. But it was definitely in the rearview mirror. But there is kind of a pipeline from Neosho to Pittsburgh State. And so I said, yeah, sure. But when I made that decision, I had no idea how transformative it would ever be. I was a way more selfish person in high school than I am now. I don't know how or why or what changed me. I can't really pinpoint it. I just did. I think that being surrounded with amazing people in Pittsburgh, not to discredit people in Neosho or my friends there, but it's just a totally different beast when you're on your own and you totally have to rely on these people around you, these strangers in your college town. And I think that's something that, the reason why people don't leave their hometown, especially if they're from a small town, is because they don't want to get out of their comfort zone. And I think that's where I flourish. And I think that's why, I am where I am now. Definitely attribute to that.
Do you, would you rather value finances or relationship?
Relationship. Don't even think about it.
A quick answer.
Yeah.
So why?
That's a very interesting question because I have been comfortable my entire life. Very, very privileged in that aspect. I've never had to worry about where my next meal was or anything like that, minus in college, but that was my fault. So, I have really been blessed in that sense. And so I've never had to go without. And so my answer being so quick with relationships is I truly, truly foster and value my relationships with people in a way that, I think is different from a lot of other people. I really do think of my friends as my family, and like in the deepest sense of the word, like they truly mean the world to me. And I think that's something that, I would rather, live in a shack and have all my friends surrounding me, or, the potential relationship in the future, being filled with love. I would rather have dirt floor and sleep on a cot than be in a mansion without love. That's something that I don't even have to think about it.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I mean, I might not take the dirt floor. I might, try to do something, but I mean, I have always valued relationship. I truly think that it could be a form of currency in,
Totally.
in America or wherever. But I mean, I think that's part of the reason why I wanted to have you on, is because I knew that, you thought that as well. And I mean, there's not many people that when you meet them, that like they're more of a friend than they are like looking for something out of their relationship.
Totally. And, I think something that I have found that maybe, I don't know if it's that I'm good at, or it's just a figure of my personality, but wherever I'm at, I really try to, dig my roots as deep as I can. And that's kind of hard because, eventually you have to leave. But, when I went to college in Pittsburgh, like I would go to family dinners at my townie's friend's house, and, her grandmother was my grandmother. That's just how it was. And she's passed away now. And that's, something that, I felt too, which I think is such a blessing to be able to feel the pain of loss with somebody that wasn't even your family. And that might sound a little odd because, it's not like I want to feel pain, but to be able to have that relationship with that person meant so much to me that I feel the loss. That's priceless.
I agree with you. I mean, I'm like you, where I think a relationship can truly lead to a state of like a family feeling. And like, I mean, my background's coaching. And so everywhere you like in any football program right now, you see all these coaches are just trying to preach family, right? Like I don't know if you've ever followed Arkansas, but we had a coach for a while named Brett Bielema that he just took a job at Illinois, and his hashtag is FamIll, like ILL, family. And I'm
Mhm.
like, okay, that's interesting. I don't kind of
That's
a
cool.
weird play on words, but I understand what you're trying to do in having that sort of unity between people because it is that important. I
It
mean,
is.
mhm.
You think that like, so I grew up playing volleyball. I played year round with, my school team and my club team. And I really think that, that not only made me a hard worker in that aspect, probably could have tried harder, but also gave you that sense of family. Do you think that, like, for example, like inner city schools that don't have funding, do you think that that is something that would be really transformative for them if they did have funding for those sports programs?
Do I think absolutely? Well, I mean, yes and no. Um, yes, I think they could use it, but I mean, I think the community itself. I mean, you've got everybody's going through the same struggle, right? Like we're all going through the same struggle if we've got these finances or if we don't have them. So, I mean, really, what I think a lot of, especially if we're talking about sports, it's more so about like what do we believe in together than it is like if we had money we could do this. Because if we all believe that we can win together, we're truly a teammate, and we're pushing our relationships, then yeah, we'll do anything we can to be successful as a group. But if we happen to have a new pair of like Nikes on our feet or like some nice new jerseys, but there's no chemistry between us, then no, I
I
don't
think
think.
that's a really interesting point. Like you're saying that, it doesn't matter the funding as long as you have those relationships, then it really will set that apart. And I think that's completely correct. But I think that it's so dependent upon, the leader of the group, that coach, that to really foster those relationships. So I think that that really does unfortunately come few and far between.
Yeah, that's the bad part about it. I mean, you gotta be able to get the right guy. And one thing that I have envisioned is, I guess, a process for like, let's say that one day life takes me back into the coaching field. Well, I think I would want to be the head coach. Football coaches, especially in Texas, like they get paid very well. But I would want to be the guy that's just like, no, pay me what I need to live on. I know about what I need to live on per month, and just pay me that. And then let's use those funds to bring in guys that probably make more than I would need to make,
Mhm.
just to try to have those extra guys in here that are those character builders. And I would be interested to see where that kind of program would go. But that's just.
Yeah. As being a leader that would sacrifice that, it would
Mhm.
really, set the tone. I think that's
Yeah.
really important.
Yeah, I pitched that to a principal one time, and he just looked at me like I was crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we
As,
go to church together, and so I'm like,
what the thing is that we say all these things like, we value these relationships, but when we really implement it, as your idea would be, people think we're crazy.
mhm,
So that makes me crazy. Yeah.
mhm. Well, you got to be crazy to create change.
Exactly.
That's yeah. So okay, back to the small town life.
Oh,
So I'm reading in here, Neosho, Missouri, is like technically where you're from,
yes.
and growing up in a small town, this is a direct quote, growing up in a small town is an interesting experience. It formed me into who I am today and showed me the person that I didn't want to be.
Totally.
Why do you say that?
Okay. So, like, people always say, like, what would you do if you were with the person that you thought that you're going to spend the rest of your life with, your first love, whatever? Like, where would you be in this world? And I'd be like, oh, I'd be hating my life in Missouri. But like, not to say that I wouldn't be happy there, but I wouldn't have gone to college. I would just have stayed there like a lot of people do, which is totally fine. That's just not for me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I even think that I have goals that are bigger than what I'm doing now. Um, this is child's play for what I really have in mind for my life.
Nice.
And so to really minimize that and be in Neosho would kind of set me back, I think. But I think that a lot of the reason people stay is, as you're talking about, their comfort zones. But the tricky thing is, we as, people from small towns really want to foster the relationships of, setting these people up to go out to these bigger cities and learn stuff and come back and implement it. And the small town closed mind mindset is really turning off every single person that is going out to these larger cities and, increasing their knowledge and, exposing themselves to culture. And when they come back, they're crucified.
You ever been, what's the biggest place you've ever lived?
I lived in Washington, D.C. for 6 months.
Okay. What took you there?
I worked for a senator, Senator Claire McCaskill of Missouri. Truly the most badass woman ever.
Why? Why is she so awesome?
Because she doesn't give a damn.
Okay.
She and it is just smart as hell and doesn't need to tell you that. And I think that's something that really separates people in DC. Are they going to tell you that they're smart, or are they going to show you that they're smart? And Claire shows it in every single step that she makes in her career. And that's something that I really, really want to embody with whatever I do. Who knows? But it's nice to see that at such a young age, really being able to idolize this person that you work for, especially in DC when so many people mess up every single day. And sometimes I would even disagree with what Claire was doing. And she completely would blow me away at, her decisions and her reasoning. And, I always had faith in it. And I think that's something that, God, we really need back there.
Yeah.
I worked there for 6 months for her, and it was the most amazing experience I have ever experienced in my life.
Tell me about some of the things that you did outside of working with Claire. Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna get myself in trouble.
Let's bring the Capitol to the podcast.
Okay.
Put them in here.
So I lived in a widow's attic. It was me, and I had 4 or 5 roommates.
In an attic.
And well, I say it's an attic, but it was like, one of those DC homes that were built in like the 1700s that had like super thin and like 4 stories. So It was her own first story, a ballroom, second or a third story, 4th story, and we had the 3rd and 4th story. And, story, it's not that big. Mm-hmm. And, my roommate, Nora, and we got into, we really fully experienced DC life. I think that, nobody knows that DC, unless you live there or have visited a lot, nobody knows that DC really is kind of a going out town, and it's a blast.
Really?
But that's also, it's actually so much fun. And it's kind of crazy because you'd be at a bar and you'd be like, oh, that's a prince over there popping bottles at the table. like I'd be like, oh shit, because they're in town for all of this diplomatic stuff. And it's coming from a small town. It's different, I would say.
That's very different. I wouldn't.
It's different.
Okay, honestly, I just thought it was like all the legislative process that happened there.
Yeah, it is that, but after dark.
Yeah, I've heard that town is like, I don't know. Here in Little Rock, we've basically got like 630 that separates like, like your upper class and like your lower class.
Yeah.
Right. And I've heard DC is like very much so the same way.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Definitely. So I lived close to the Capitol. And I remember my roommate, Nora, and we didn't have our cars. And the Metro would always break. And we were like, you know what? Like, we need Chick-fil-A. Physically need it. We hadn't had it in like 5 months. And so we look up this Chick-fil-A. It's like half a mile away. And I'm like, you know what? Yes, I'm going to walk there in the dark in DC. And so her and I trekked there. And bad decision, but we did it, and I fully agree. It is exactly like that.
I've got a friend of mine that I used to go to church with that his name's Joe.
Mm-hmm.
And Joe he was trying to own his own Chick-fil-A. And I am quite sure that he's the one who told me that DC is great in some areas and rough in others, as what you and I are talking about. But yeah, anyways, he learned that from working at a Chick-fil-A next to the Capitol.
Yeah, it probably was exactly the same when I went.
Yeah.
Yeah, the same. I just jogged up to thank you, be fine. No,
Yeah,
it wasn't. But yeah, and that's definitely, exactly like Little Rock. Like, it's not like it happened on accident.
Mm-hmm. It's crazy what Southern people will do for Chick-fil-A.
It's true.
Mm-hmm. It's like a Texan and Whataburger.
Yeah, that is very true. I'm pretty sure I didn't have Chick-fil-A, but a handful of times before I went to college.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's attributed to because my dad has never eaten there.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Your poor dad.
I know. Well, it is delicious, but I'm going to get in trouble for telling the story. So, so one time I was coming back from Pittsburgh to Neosho. There's a Chick-fil-A in between in Joplin. I was like, hey, Dad, give him a call. I was like, hey, I'm running through Chick-fil-A for dinner. Like, if you want anything, because I'm pretty sure my mom was out of town or something. And he said, oh, no, I don't want anything. But while you're there, go ahead and hand them over your voter registration card because they vote against everything we believe in. And I was like, okay.
Nice.
Ouch.
Oh, man.
It's so good.
So good. Yes. Okay. So I remember, what was it? I think it was like 2015, 2016, whenever like gay marriage was passed.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm from Longview, Texas. It's like a town of 85,000 people. And I remember everybody that day going to Chick-fil-A. Like everybody going to Chick-fil-A. There was like an hour and 30-minute wait to get to the drive-through of Chick-fil-A because that's what they like they believed in.
That was their solidarity.
Yeah, but they are the Lord's chicken. It's so good.
It is the Lord's chicken.
Yeah.
Oh God.
So, well, not that I'm sponsored by Chick-fil-A, but I think we are going to take a commercial break.
Hello.
That was a painstakingly awesome anchor commercial again. So, all right. We've talked a little bit about Chick-fil-A. We've talked about Neosho. You're in law school now.
Yes, I am. Lucky me.
Okay. So from what I have seen, it is probably the most brutal thing that anybody can decide to do. Why are you doing it?
Well, it's 3 years long of hazing. And, if you asked me that a year and a half ago, I'd be like, oh, I'm going to law school. It's my next step. But I couldn't really tell you why, other than, my father is an attorney. I've seen him have a great career. But, I didn't understand what it meant to be truly passionate about something until you had to fight for it. And that comes from, going unprepared to first day of class, to, working your ass off and still getting a bad grade.
So what is it that you were so passionate about, or what did you have to fight for that drove the passion behind the law school?
So I think that, because I don't know exactly what I want to do and I don't have a job offer or anything like that.
They'll come.
I think that really the overarching theme of what I want to do is I want to help people. And I've been able to see that with my dad. He's a personal injury attorney. And, some people go through absolute hell. And to be able to help them a little bit, get some extra finances from, what they've been through, it's one of the most rewarding things ever. And so I look forward to doing that in the future. And, I wouldn't say that school has always come easy for me. I always say that, maybe I remember I maybe did homework once in high school.
Yep.
And so that's kind of embarrassing. But, it, I got fine grades. Like I went to Pitt State. And I always say, like, if I tried as hard as I do now in law school in undergrad, I would be at Harvard. So,
Mm-hmm.
so yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And so it's when you're thrown into law school and you're like, holy shit, I have to try hard at this or it's going to be taken away.
Yeah.
And that is what, sets men apart from boys.
Yeah.
And, to really be able to, I guess, boss up and do the damn thing has made me even more passionate about it.
Well, this is, I think, one of the reasons that they make hard or law school as hard as it is because your career, like, it's almost like practicing really hard before a game. The harder you practice, the easier the game's going to come to you. And so, like, whenever you guys get out, at least from the people that I'm paying attention to, who are also my wife's classmates, like when you guys get out, I truly believe that your career will reflect how hard y'all have worked. So like you're going to do great things, right? Like you're going to go be a heckin' personal injury lawyer, right?
Yeah.
And let's touch on that for a minute. So the personal injury game, I've watched a little bit of it. Okay, like not a whole lot, but it is absolutely amazing to me what some of these larger companies will do to drag on a personal injury case.
Yeah, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, and like, you know what? Like I wouldn't put it past me. I've even like applied for because the defense side of personal injury because I want to know what they think and what they're going to use against my case. I want to know because especially being on trial team, I'm able to see both sides and I want to know exactly what they're going to say or exactly how they're going to discredit my client or anything like that. It's all a mind game and I want to know. I just want to know.
I have really observed the legal field as what would the other side say? Like the getting prepared for, especially which my like limited physical education degree can only understand so much. But I mean, a lot of this just seems like a real chess match. So it's, I can make this move and then my other 7 moves are playing currently, but once they respond, my other 7 moves might change. And so the constant back and forth, and it seems really prevalent in personal injury.
Yeah, totally. And, depending on what you can use as evidence or anything like that, like truly you can make the jury believe whatever you want. And, that's a good thing, but that's also a bad thing because the other side can too. So I think not only is it, so beneficial to help people and really get that reward for them, but, it's a hard thing to do. And that challenge is one of the most inviting things about it, I feel like, because I'm not going to live my life I'm not going to be mediocre. And so whatever I'm going to do in my job, I'm not going to just sit my ass at my desk. And if that means I lose a couple cases because it's hard, so be it. But I'm going to work my ass off.
Come on. I'm going to allow it.
And I think that's something that is like so interesting because, Monica and I share the same group of friends and they're smart as hell. So it's really interesting being friends with so many smart, brilliant people. You're like, oh, so these are the people I'm going to have to go against in court. And, it makes you want to step up just as much.
Yeah. So are you currently working in the legal field?
Yeah.
Oh, hang on. Let me not discredit that last statement. All of Monica's classmates are incredibly intelligent.
It's scary.
It's incredibly scary. And I can see where it would be hard to like look at these people now as your friends and like y'all might be competitors one day.
Yeah, like what if I go against Monica? What?
What's up?
You have to plead the fifth.
That's right. So, but okay, currently, are you working in the legal field?
Yes, I work at the prosecutor's office here in Pulaski County.
Okay.
I work in the department that deals with misdemeanor complaints.
Okay.
So pretty much what I deal with is, domestic abuse and, petty theft and, misdemeanors.
Okay.
Something that, is important to point out is that, that if you're going to feel passionate about anything, feel passionate about the domestic violence, because that's really completely life-changing and
Absolutely.
really put into perspective how precious life is.
Mm-hmm.
And so to be able to help people, once again, it's amazing.
I was listening to something a while ago that they were talking about. I think it was some guy arguing. He was saying, well, women are more likely to abuse men than men are women. And I'm like, no, I don't really think so. Really men are more likely to severely hurt and or kill their spouse. So, I mean, like, I don't know if that would just go into like a murder column than it would like domestic abuse. Am I right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So
it's one punch could be the difference.
yeah, I mean, it really could.
My desk or whether it goes to the elected's desk.
What has working in the prosecutor's office meant to you?
I think that it's such a tricky thing to really dive into that, because I feel so incredibly passionately about the Black Lives Matter movement and, what that means to, defund the police and stuff like that. And, when I say I support that, I know that that is concerning my job too. And I think that anybody that has been in my shoes in my job there's no way they cannot say that we don't need social workers on the streets. Mm-hmm. There is absolutely no way somebody that works in law enforcement can say that without being wrong. And it's just.
I agree with you. No, I agree with you. Well, a lot of, especially if we're going to talk about the defund the police movement, I don't know that I agree with the jargon there. I do think
totally wrong branding.
Yeah,
we need a new marketer. Yes. Whoever came up with that.
Yeah, they did a bad job coming up with that. But I do think that having a professional like a social worker or something like that, because I mean, imagine being a police officer and having to go up on a domestic violence call.
Yeah.
Right. You basically over the course of time, like let's say that, my first domestic violence call, if I was a police officer, was, I don't know, this evening, right? Yeah. I'm not prepared for that. Or if I'm responding to my 100th this evening, well, now I'm hardened to them. And I've never had any like legit training in between those other 99 to make me a viable person to deal with the situation.
I think the hardening is one of the most important words when it comes to law enforcement, and even all the way up into the court system. Mm-hmm. If you are a judge and you see, 50 cases a day of the same petty drug crimes, you're going to be so much harder on those people because they become less people to you. Mm-hmm. They become, just numbers on the docket. And that's something that has to change. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And especially for people of color, they get such a different experience in the court system. For example, like if I got a drug crime or a charge or anything like that, it'd be a different story. Not only would I probably, I would definitely have a greater possibility of surviving that initial interaction with police, but mm-hmm. I have statistically a better chance of getting off with that crime, getting a lesser sentence and everything like that. So that's something that, I hope that everybody can give weight to. But if not, there needs to be some people that are replaced. That's it.
This goes back to probably some of the small town mindset that we were talking about earlier, and challenging those things and just having the passion to help people. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the
So,
empathy to really put yourself in those shoes.
yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I think that it's so important when, people of color speak out about this and, white people feel uncomfortable. Good. You're supposed to.
Mm-hmm.
And, one of the questions that really stuck with me during the Black Lives Matter movement and ongoing, it's, if you were treated as a person of color in the United States of America today, would you be okay with that?
Oh,
The answer is no.
man. Yes. Yes. My answer would be no. Like,
Yeah.
that's deep. And but that's why we need that change too.
Exactly. And us as white people need to, change that,
Mm-hmm.
because we're the only ones that can. And that's coming from, it's on us. It is on us.
Yeah. Yeah. So have you ever seen Just Mercy, the movie? Read the book? Yeah. We were watching it, I don't know, a couple nights ago, and I absolutely love that movie. The EJI, all of it. I mean, and my wife, her reason for wanting to go to law school is because of this book. And I never understood it. And she told me for like, I don't know, a year and a half that I needed to read the book. But I was like, is there a movie coming out soon? And she's like, yeah. And I was like, waiting for that. I'm not the big reader, but I do understand her perspective on why, all these things that we've talked about, being able to fight for others, to advocate for others is such an important thing especially in today's world. And so like shout out to people like her and people like you who have those passions and truly just want to help people.
Yeah. And for people, if you're coming from my side, that I recommended you listening to this podcast, Monica is probably one of the most remarkable human beings with the most empathetic heart I've ever met in my life.
I would have to agree with that.
Yeah, you would actually have to.
Yeah.
And so it's really encouraging being surrounded by people with such good hearts as y'all. So it's awesome.
Yeah. And I guess if you're coming from my side, you ought to know that Courtney is one of those people who just truly wants to help people. And if you've made it this far into the podcast, you should have that understanding already, because she's definitely put it on display, and everything that she's saying is not a front. It is truly how she feels. There have been nights where we have celebrated grades and been upset about grades in the local bar scenes here in Little Rock. And these conversations between Courtney and I happen often. Yeah. And that's why she's really here today, is to just offer that kind of perspective.
And, it does pay a tribute to you. Like, you're honestly so easy to talk to, but I am this annoying. I do have these views. And I am this annoying. And I do talk about it all the dang time. And so, yeah, that's just a glimpse into having me in your life.
Yeah. So, okay, last thing as we get ready to close. Do you have any wisdom, any major thoughts that you want to pass on to our listeners?
I am learning every day and failing every day and getting better every day and learning from my mistakes. And I think that one of the most important things in this life is to really understand that we don't know other struggles. And to be able to feel empathy for other people is so extremely valuable. And to be able to see their point of view in things. And I can't give you this quote that's going to be, on a monument someday. I can't give that to you right now, hopefully in the future, as I continue to grow and learn and become, the person that I am. But as of right now, I think that's really the best philosophy I can offer, is just to be empathetic.
I agree. I agree. So, well, Courtney, thanks again so much for taking the time out of your very busy afternoon to come hang out with me on the Daily People podcast. Where can listeners find you if they're interested in following you?
They can find me on Instagram at Courtney Neff. They can find me on Twitter if they want. The retweets, they cannot get any better.
Okay.
And, pretty much all social media.
Okay. Come on. At Courtney Neff. Be sure to check her out. Thanks again for your time.